Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 1st. There's no April Fools here. It's just two great guys talking about how to build businesses. I am so lucky today with Real Estate Talk, TGIF, episode 199, with a good friend of mine, Juan Del Sol. Good morning, Juan. How are you?
Good morning, Dave. Good to be here on episode 199.
199. Can you believe it? 199 episodes. We've done that all in 196 weeks. So we're real excited about our broadcast. Real excited about a lot of things going on. And then what I want to do is I want to get into this, really talk about how you got into real estate, all about your project, multiple clients list, and how that can help real estate agents, because that's what this Real Estate Talk TGIF is all about. Sound good?
Sounds perfect.
Great, man. We'll be right back.
Real estate agent, are you looking to acquire clients consistently so you can grow your business and your income to live a great lifestyle? This is Dave Finale and the RE Skill Builder podcast.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As I said, it is April 1st, 2022. It is Real Estate Talk TGIF 199, and we have Juan Del Sol on, a friend of mine for a couple of years, number of years, and you know, we understand each other's business and how we both work. But Juan, before we get into the meat of our conversation today, I really need to ask you one simple question, and that question is, what does TGIF stand for?
Thank God it's finale.
Well, you see, you got it, man. That is finale. That is phenomenal. That is finale, right? So I'm really excited. Thank you so much, man. It means you're a student of the broadcast.
That's right.
Along with a lot of greats, and it's good to have another great on today. Juan, welcome. So Juan, you're in a real estate business, and you've seen some places where you can help agents build their business. But first, I want to talk about you, because the most important thing for everybody that comes on my broadcast, aside from, and the most important thing is the people we're broadcasting to, is also the person that joins me to discuss it, and that's you and your business. So tell me, Juan, how you got into the real estate business, why you got into the real estate business, and where is it going to take you?
Awesome. Well, thanks again for having me. I'm very excited to be here in this show. It's amazing. And you're doing great things. Obviously, 199 episodes. It's amazing. It's going well. So I'm very excited. And you bring so much value to the real estate industry. So I'm honored to be here with you and share some knowledge. So I got on by, I basically got on by a chance. And I'm going to throw in a name, a shout out to my realtor at that time, Janice Seema. She's the one that actually motivated me to get into real estate. I was purchasing my first house at age 22. Right around there, 21, 22. And so she was the one that helped us find the house. She was very attentive and was just a stellar agent. And then as we got through the process, she saw that I was really good at the paperwork and the follow-up and staying on top of it and my personal behavior. So she actually said, you should consider getting into real estate. I said, no way, this is not for me. It's not something. I was in corporate at that time. So I said, that's something I can't leave a corporate job to get into this business. And then we stayed in touch, continued communicating. And then within 2 years after that, I took the leap of faith and I became licensed real estate. I started working part-time. My wife was my biggest supporter, and she said, let's just do it and work on it. And I started as a buyer's agent part-time, and I started with a good company, good place where I met awesome people that helped me and supported me and gave me leads, and I was a hustler. So every weekend I would, being a buyer's agent, every open house that there was available, I would just jump in. I would raise my hand, send out emails to the company, who's hosting an open house, can I join? And because I was working Monday through Friday, Saturday and Sunday I was free to host. So that's how I started developing my skills really quick and jump into it in the deep end.
So, man, you were mostly a part-time agent in the beginning, though, right?
Yes.
And how was that? How did that work for you as far as learning the business or doing really any business?
It was a good experience because I had my weekends off, and that was what I was focusing on with the buyers. You know, a lot of the buyers are also working Monday through Friday. So if you're able to manage your time and their expectations, you could do some business, not 100%, but some
Right.
business, and work around your schedule as you develop your book of business, you know, and your referrals and you grow your business. So it's not something that you would necessarily have to jump in as a full-time agent. A lot of agents want to try it out, experience it, see if it's a field that they would like continuing on.
Right.
So for me, that was kind of I wanted to take a leap of faith, but at the same time, I had security on my side. So it's a struggle that I think a lot of agents go through, and it's important that you go at your pace, you
Right.
develop it and learn the skills, and then once you feel comfortable with the skills and the knowledge, then you could go in full time.
All right, great. So that's really important. It's really big stuff because a lot of agents, they come in and they say to me sometimes when I had my brokerage, oh, I want to try real estate. Try. I don't think it's something you can try. Do you think it is?
Yeah. No, it's definitely not something you could try because there's a lot of responsibilities on our shoulders. And I'm sure you remember your first closing. I still remember my first
I
closing.
do.
The amount of pressure that goes on our as us as professionals. These clients are relying on your expertise, your knowledge to bring them to a home. And so one misstep that could financially hurt the clients. And so for me, every client is like my first. I treat them as the first client.
I think the important thing here is like you're growing and building knowledge as you move along. It's like, okay, so when we think about, all these big companies buying the other companies, people say, well, they want to make more money. Yeah, they want to make more money, but how are they doing it? With the data. And as you start building your business and start doing the business, you get more data. You get more,
Yeah.
some people call it experience, some people call it data.
Yeah.
And what it does is it allows you to do a better job. And you treat everybody the same as you said, but you're doing a better job as you move along, right?
Exactly.
So the experience is what helps, and having good mentoring, coaching, and training along the way is a big help.
Absolutely.
So
It's key.
I firmly believe, and one of the things I work with my agents on is support. And I like to explain to them what support is about. Tell me a little bit about the support that you had. I mean, you had it. And most of the times our family and friends really don't know how to support us, but you had that from the beginning, right?
Yes, so I was fortunate to get into a few teams, and initially from the support that I received was an agent in the office immediately took me under her wing, and she showed me the ropes, took me to our whole open houses, and it was working pretty well. And above that, I later on shout out to Sekou. I was part of his group, an amazing organization, and I was able to tap into his coaching, which is, as you know, you're part of it. Everybody, it's phenomenal. It's just a blessing to be able to have his coaching, his experience, and propel my business.
Right. And that's key. That's so key to be able to have someone that you trust, you can talk to. And that's so important. I mean, one of the things that you look at a lot of different things. And one of the things that I think agents need to understand is they need to be coachable. Now, does that necessarily mean hire a coach? Well, maybe not in the beginning because of the expense, but it's something you need to understand. You need to be coachable from colleagues, from mentors, from everybody that's out there that is willing to help you. So you move along in your business and you're working with buyers and you're working with sellers and stuff. And what happened? What this thing we're talking about today is multiple client lists, right? And we're talking about that because it's a project that you have that's near and dear to your heart that you're, I believe, the co-founder of, right?
Yes.
Talk to me about where it came from. What was the idea behind multiple clients list?
So my strong suit was buyers. Like when I got into the business, and that's all I wanted to work with. I just wanted buyers. I wasn't focused on listings at all. If they came in, great. But my main focus was just buyers, which for me at that time, at that market, it was a sweet spot because we had good inventory, good prices, and I could negotiate really good price off the asking, or I was known for getting my clients at least $10,000 in seller concession. So I was dealing with a lot of FHA buyers that were putting 3.5% plus getting $10,000 in seller concession. They were coming in with $7,000 to purchase a house.
Right.
So to me, that was a blessing to be able to get a family for that small amount of money into a home. That to me was super satisfying. It was amazing feeling. So that was all I focused on. I was all about the buyers. And at that time, listings were taking a little bit longer to sell. So buyers was moving a lot faster. And so what ended up happening is you obviously get experience and you learn from your mistakes and working with buyers. And I was a big believer in trust. Trust the buyers, the relationship, and work based on trust. Until the point where you start getting hurt and you start seeing that you bring so much value to the table, and there has to be something contractual regarding that value. Like, you can't just take on 5 buyers and not knowing if you're going to get paid or not. That's
Right.
like, for us, it's like saying, okay, if your dream, let's just say your dream job is Google, and you go to Google and Google says, we will hire you for 6 months to a year, and at the end of the term, we will consider paying you. Is that something you would take on?
No.
But we do it all the time.
We do, right?
We do it all the time. We just don't think about it. So that's exactly what agents are signing up when they start working with a buyer. There's no agreement. There's no contract. There's no structure. It's like, let me show you 500 houses, and then maybe you pick one, maybe you don't. Maybe we get into contract, maybe we don't. That happens way too often. And then the realtors get discouraged and move out of business because they say, this is not for me. I'm showing, and nothing comes out of it.
Right.
So that's where I started realizing there's fundamental issues in the business. There's fundamental education missing in the business, and there's not enough conversations happening about this topic with buyers. So I was working with a buyer on and off for a year, and I was actually in Florida for a few days during the week. It wasn't even like a weekend. And he calls me up and says, there's a new house that came into the market in the one town that he said he didn't want to see houses.
Right.
Always happens,
Right.
So what a surprise. The right mark. I mean, he lived in the town. It was the right budget. It was the right place to be. I was pushing to send them to listen, stay in town. We could get what you're looking for in this town. You don't have to look anywhere else. But they said, no, don't send me anything in that town. Surprise, surprise, a listing in that town comes to market, and I was in Florida, and he calls me and says, there's a house and that came onto the market. We really like it. We want to see it. Okay. So I said, okay, no problem. I'll be back Friday. Let's go see it Saturday. So come back Saturday morning. I called, let's go see the house. They said, no, we're already in contract.
What?
I said,
wow.
What do you mean you're in contract? How did that happen? So he said, well, there was an open house, and we went to see it, and we put an offer on the spot, and they accepted our offer. So I said, open house, that must have been during the week. That must have been a broker's open. And so, at that point, it's like, you submitted an offer with what agent? And he said, no, with the person hosting it. So I already knew that they submitted an offer with the listing agent. And that got affected, of course. Double commission. Why not push that offer through? Probably the first offer, nobody comes
right.
into a broker at that market. Nobody comes in at a broker's open and put an offer.
Right.
We weren't in this market,
Exactly.
So after that, I said, good for you. Good luck. Let's keep me posted. Anything that happens, anything that changes, I'll be here for you, and just full support. Obviously, I'm hurt. We showed a lot of houses. We submitted offers before, and it didn't work out. But then I get a call after the fact that they're having issues with inspection. There's a lot of termite. They're afraid that it's like, you get this after the fact. And I said, unfortunately, I cannot advise you. I cannot help you because you're not my client. You have to discuss that with your agent. And the answer was, my agent is not giving me any help. And I said, well, you didn't understand that the listing agent's first priority is the seller. That's who he initiated the contract with.
Right.
You're secondary. So now, yes, he could be a dual agent, but there's a fine line. And that's part of when I started thinking, like, buyers are not educated on why it's important to use a buyer agent, a buyer rep, because we're the ones that are going to fight for the best deal for them. And so at that point, they closed, and they actually closed on my son's birthday, which was something that I would never forget, because, that closing should have come to me, and I would have celebrated a nice birthday with my son.
Exactly.
And then, so I learned from that. And then my wife said to me, there's got to be something where there's got to be a system where you could say and show that buyer was yours. That way we can minimize and eliminate what you just went through. And so we started doing research and looking up information, and there was nothing like it. There was no form software where you could say, this buyer is being represented by Juan Del Sol, like an MLS when you have a listing. How simple it is, right? You can't go after the seller once the listing is on the MLS.
Right.
Why couldn't it be the same system for a buyer? And so that's when the idea was formed from my struggles. And
So
I'm sure everybody shares it.
So, all right. So you were protected. Loyalty
Yep.
was something that you expected, even though you
Yep.
were working with them for a long time. It was something you didn't get.
Yep.
How do we protect ourselves?
So at that point, from doing all the research and now trying to get back into the rhythm, the protection would have been just having a buyer agreement. Having a simple buyer agreement representing, stating the relationship, representing, putting their name, my name, and being represented, then I would have had a solid case in front of a board to be able to say, listen, this was a misunderstanding. How can we fix the situation?
Right. Well, a lot of people want to go to their brokers and they want to say, hey, you know what? They stole this client from me, yada, yada, yada. And say, well, did you get in New Jersey? Did you get a consumer information?
CIS.
But yeah, CIS, but that's not proof that you had an agreement. It just says that, okay, maybe you talked, right? So then we get this buyer agreement signed, and a lot of people are afraid of this buyer agreement. And I'll let you expand on this, but the fear is that, they're not going to want to sign anything with me. They shouldn't. They know they don't have to pay all this stuff. Talk a little bit more about that.
So the beautiful thing is, for me, is you're setting yourself apart from every other realtor. If you go to a buyer and say, listen, Mr. Buyer, I'm willing to represent you. I only represent a short amount of buyers in this market or whatever market. And truly, I'm going to give you 100%. And what I do behind the scenes is I do the following. I preview homes. I look up for sale by owners. And I call colleagues to see who has a listing coming up. So I do a lot more work than what you actually see. And so in order for me to provide that effort and that work, we need to start a working relationship. Now, how can we start a working relationship? It's simple. We could create a small agreement. It's based on time. And we start a relationship from there. Now, in any competitive market, how do you think it's going to sound if we're going to present an offer and I show not only do I have an offer ready with a pre-approval, but I also have a working relationship in contract that I'm representing you? That means you're above everybody else. You're serious about buying. Nobody that is not serious about buying would not miss this opportunity, would not sign it. So it's just an added layer of proof that you're a serious buyer and you're ready to go. Right. So that's how I pitch it to and discuss it with the buyers.
Okay. So we've got the buyer agreement. We've got the buyer. Talk to me about how this all works with multiple client lists. What's the thing with that? Talk to me about that and how everything works in concert.
Yeah. So multiple client lists, the key is the same as a listing agreement. So all your buyer's agreement will be uploaded to the website. and the website doesn't announce that you have a buyer. It doesn't go out there and doesn't push out notifications to every agent that there's a buyer, that you sign up a new buyer.
Right.
What it does is just maintains the records. And so if that buyer goes to a listing agent, that is, listing agent could go into our system, put your name, phone number, email, and then the database will tell you if that buyer has or had a buyer agreement in the past. So now we are creating that much needed transparency where we're saying, wait a minute, this buyer it's working with an agent right now. Here's the agent's information. Now you stopped out that realtor, that listing agent, from going a step further because they know that their commission is at risk. If they try to represent that buyer, it doesn't affect that, that already is in contract. So at that point, they could call the agent, the buyer's agent, and say, your buyer came to me. Here's the scenario, and just creates that transparency that we need in the business. Aside from that, it also tells you a history on the buyer. So now you're going to be able to know if that buyer worked with other buyer's agents in the past 6 months, a year, whatever the case may be. So now you can have deeper conversation with that buyer. So let's say a buyer comes in and you run it through the system and you saw that they were in contract 6 months ago and it expired. So now you could say, I saw that you were working with a realtor before. How was that experience? What changed and what made you switch realtors? So now you're really going a step in and deeper meaning and conversations with that buyer and understanding of what went wrong and how can you address it so you could get to the closing a lot better.
Okay, so we've got an idea of what's working there, and you've got all this other stuff. Talk to me about what intricacies there are with multiple client listing. Is it difficult to use? Is there, go through it. Go through it a little bit more with me.
Yeah. So currently, as our website stands and how the system was developed, it was a manual process. So the agent will sign up to our website and they would upload the buyer information, the buyer contract, and that gets uploaded and then it's searchable. What we're doing now, the next phase of our development is we're actually making it integrated with all the DocuSigns that we use, all the e-signature softwares that we use. That way it minimizes the input from the realtors itself. So it's funny, this is a topic that a lot of people don't touch on in terms of everybody wants to be an entrepreneur until they see what the background of being an entrepreneur is. They don't understand all the struggles and the late nights and the development. So we were developing integration with Loop to make it easier and getting the API running. And now everybody's switching away from Loop. Everybody's going to DocuSign. So now we had to pivot again and say, okay, we definitely want Loop involved, as part of the system. But now we're seeing DocuSign as the biggest transition and the biggest player for real estate. So now we also have to include that system into our platform. So what it does is, as soon as you create, I'll give you an example with Loop. As soon as you create a buyer loop, the system will automatically pick that up and start recording it on the back end. And once the buyer agreement is signed and it shows as signed within Loop, it would show as an active agreement within the system. So if in the future you search that buyer, you could see that updated without minimal input from the agents. And then if you're also don't get signed, it shows as pending. So it means that it wasn't fully your client. So it's going to create that whole record easier from software to software.
So basically what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that everybody knows that this is a client that is working with a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, all right. So let's talk about, we understand the benefits of the buyer agreement. Now we understand how multiple client lists work. Let's talk about the advantages of multiple client lists to the buyer. I take that back, to the agents, right? Because if you go to your site, which is multipleclientlist.com,
mm-hmm.
There's a lot of things on that you're talking about. You talk about services, you talk about working with key buyers. Talk to me about that and how it builds up.
Ties together.
Great, it all ties together. Excellent, right?
Yeah. So the beauty of it is what agents need to understand is, first, you're going to meet a lot of buyers and a lot of clients, okay? But you need to be able to weave through who's the right buyer to work on and who's the
Right.
right focus, because a lot of times we could be focusing and sending in constant communication with 10 buyers, but only 2 or 3 are really ready to buy, but you're spreading yourself thin working with 10. So the key element of our software and our education behind it is to say, the buyers that work with you and get a buy agreement signed with you, those are your top A buyers. Those are the ones ready to go now. So
Right.
focus on those and then minimize the others. Just keep them in your CRM, keep pushing information to them, keep in touch, but they're not 100% committed to you as the other ones that sign. So that's the first step.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I want everybody to understand this, that the buyers that are willing to commit to you are your top buyers. The other ones may not be ready, or, the loyalty might not be there. Would that be correct?
Yeah.
A way of assuming it?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
that's our emphasis behind educating both the consumer and the realtor. They need to understand that this is a professional step and process of real estate, as it should be. And so once you get those buyers signed up, that's a key indicator that they're 100% committed to you. So you better hustle and you better come through with them. So that's one benefit. The second,
Go ahead.
yeah. So the second item is you're going to be able to you understand that every buyer eventually becomes a seller. So you want to make sure that you stay in touch with them, you maintain them, and that's why it's important to work with key buyers, because eventually they will become sellers, and that's more properties, listings, and business for a realtor. Aside from that, those buyers, you're providing a service above everybody else. What do you think is going to happen when they speak with their families, or they do their family gathering, they do their welcome party to their home? They're going to be talking about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So okay. So let's see. Okay. So we've got essential business things. We're making your relationship and understanding clear between for the client, the buyer, right? It's going to make you, I believe it's going to give you a better understanding of each other. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So as you move along, you're going to work better because you're working with clients that are committed to you. And the more they're committed to you, the more clients are possible later on through them telling people how great you were to work with, and that working with just one agent makes a lot of sense. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then as time goes on, one thing about buyers is they will eventually turn into sellers.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's really, really important. So as we move along with all of this, what kind of support, what kind of work does an agent need to do in order to get their buyer list together of a loyalty list? Because your buyer list can be a loyalty list as well. So how does one work that? Because part of the things that part of the problem with most agents is they don't have the confidence in building and getting to that buyer agreement.
So it starts with a solid presentation. You need to know what your value proposition is. You need to know what you bring to the table, and you need to be able to present that in a manner that is understandable. So you always have to train, and we tie this back to coaching and having your systems in place and understanding your business. If you don't understand your business, if you don't understand how your presentation, how you carry yourself, what you're pitching, how you're communicating with clients, your value proposition, then really you're just like everybody else who's
right.
How are you going to set yourself apart? So one other feature that we always discuss is have a buyer representation agreement, have a buyer presentation. Bring him in as a consultation and sit with them. Or do a Zoom meeting. There's nothing wrong with having a full discussion with the client before going to see properties.
Right.
you're saving what agents need to understand is if you have this buyer presentation first, you get a deeper understanding of the client. They understand what you're doing for them. They understand your value. They would sign a buyer agreement. And now you have a better education of what exactly they're looking for instead of showing them 5 houses to get an understanding of what they're actually looking for, what they like and don't like.
Exactly. So you're actually, yeah. So we started this discussion with about a client that you had that wasn't going to look in a certain area. Don't send me any of that stuff, but that's where they bought. So a little word to the wise for any new agent, even experienced agents. One of the things that I've always done and still do is if they tell me they want town A, B, and C, I always throw in town D and E. Yeah. And if they say, we told you we didn't want these, I say, oh, okay, I'm sorry. If they tell me they only want one simple style, I'll throw in another style with like 5 of the others that they wanted. Because we need to make sure that we're doing our jobs better. And we need to, we can assume that they know what they want, but we can also assume that maybe they just don't know what the other things are, what the other options are. And that's how it goes. And once you start doing that, the road to that buyer agreement is a lot easier. Now, I want to ask you another question. There's a lot of people, I belong to this great mastermind that we do every Monday. And one of the suggestions was to use the buyer agreement as a loyalty agreement rather than calling it a buyer agreement, or also use it. Well, look, you can get out of this agreement anytime. Do you believe that we should be able to, that the buyer should be able to get out of that agreement at any time?
100%. So I actually, in the presentation, I encourage agents to say, if there's any issue that you don't see this relationship working, you could just text me, send me an email and say, I no longer want to work with you and we're done. I want to have that transparency in the beginning so they understand they're not tying themselves up to a long-term contract or agreement. This is just making it a formal relationship and they could get out of it at any time. So if you create that transparency from the beginning, the buyer will respect it and will work with you and will stick with you because you're giving them the way out. You're letting them know this is not set in stones. I want to make sure that this works mutually.
Okay. So as a buyer agreement expert, and that's what I consider you are, as an agreement expert, I want to ask you this question. So in the agreement, and now I know about the ones in New Jersey, we put a percentage that the buyer will pay, or let's say that the agent will receive for their services. What happens and how do you handle a shortfall in that number?
So for me, that's another negotiation. And that's another value that I could add to my client. Whether I said, we negotiate and I lower the commission and make sure that the deal closed, because at the end of the day, a small percentage of a closing is still a closing, rather than 0 of 100, of 100 of 0. So for me, that's just a negotiating term, and that's adding more value to the buyer, which will 10 out of 10 times that buyer will recommend you to everybody else. So they would see that you went above and beyond for them, and they would bring that 10 times fold.
Awesome. I want to also add to that, if I may, and for people that get a little bit excited about that and worried about that, if you set a percentage on your agreement, just tell them or put in the agreement that says that if there's anything where the numbers are different than what we're shown, what we agreed to, we will get your permission first and discuss it first before we show you that property. Because that's another tactic that has been used all over the country. So does that make sense? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Transparency is key in communication.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Because we see a lot of agents, as I said, I mean, the whole problem, I think, with buyer agreements today, and you know as well as I do, you've worked in New Jersey, is that it's not something that's prevalent, especially in northern New Jersey. And a lot of people are doing their best to start using them, but there's a fear involved, getting someone to sign something, right? And like you said, you're not going to go take a job and then say, well, I'll tell you what, maybe we'll pay you in a few weeks, maybe we won't. I don't know. Just work for a few weeks and see, find out. So tell me more about where you see multiple client lists going.
Yeah. So Another point that I wanted to add also is, if you're an agent and you have your preferred lender and you're bringing that client to your preferred lender, you will have a better communication and a better relationship with your lender if you're letting them know that they also sign a buyer agreement, because that lender is understanding as well that that buyer is 100% committed. And that also is another level of transparency and communication and team effort, right? So you also can use your resources to help bring the buyer to your side and sign the agreement and say this is standard practice. So make sure you have those communications as well. I wanted to add that in. Use your resources wisely, because at the end of the day, everybody's there to help the clients and get everybody to a closing. So make them aware.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the future is simple, right? So, and I had this multiple conversations with you and with NAR and different industry leaders. And so what we're seeing now is there's definitely a lot of misinformation on buyer agency across the US. So some states currently use buyer agency as standard practice. So you cannot represent a buyer unless you have a buyer agency agreement in place.
Right.
So that to me is a sure thing that eventually every single state will make this standard practice. And
so.
Why do I say that? Because right now with a low inventory, what are we seeing? The buyers are just going straight to the listing agent. There's a ton of double commissions out there, double closings, and then who's to say who paid what and why did they pay so much above a house? And what if we take a turn and now that buyer is frustrated that they overpaid for a house? So what is going to happen is it's going to create that lawsuits, frustrations, headaches. So how can we prevent that from an MLS perspective? And I know you're very involved. How many cases of grievance and fighting over commissions? That's something that could be minimized just by using this software. Now it's not a guessing game. It's not going through text. It's not going through showing records. It's just saying, I had the agreement and this is my client, clear as day. It's not my fault that you didn't do your due diligence and search the buyer.
Right.
So it's a simple way of just communicating and making it a better system. Also, we want to add a ton more features like open house. So when you have open house and all these buyers sign in through the system, now you can go from 30 buyers that sign in and you have to follow up with every single one of them to 5 or 6, because the system will tell you who's not in a contract, who's not in an agreement.
Yeah. So you know what? This has been really enlightening, because this is a topic that really agents need to understand and need to see. It's not as difficult as everybody makes it out to be. And with your software, with your project, with your product and application, it's going to make things a lot easier. It's going to make everything more, as you said several times, transparent. Now, you mentioned someone earlier today, and I wanted to further and talk about, working with buyers, working with sellers and stuff. And I have it's a surprise for you. I'm going to bring somebody else on to talk to us a little bit that you had mentioned earlier, and he's been on with me a lot, on and off over the 199 episodes. And I want to welcome.
Damn, 199. Let's go. Juan Del Sol.
Cool.
What's up, my brother? How are you? Hey man, I'm sitting up back here and I'm listening to the stuff that you put together. You've been on this journey for a while, man. It's definitely been a passion project for you, huh?
Absolutely.
Oh, man. Hey, listen, Dave will tell you, man, that I am a firm believer that it is never a buyer's market or a seller's market, that it's always a broker's market. And it's our relationships, it's our communication, it's our trust and belief and ability to broker a deal that really gets the best for the clients and customers and prospects. What your app is doing and what your program is doing, your platform, is creating a communication space that sort of assumes the relationship between the clients, customers, and prospects, so that the agents can have really beneficial conversations with each other. I love it, man. That's
Thank
awesome.
you. Thank you. So the one of the things that we always go back and forth is, what do we do as realtors?
Mm-hmm.
And the first thing that I tell my clients when I work with them is, listen, I'm not here to send you constant houses. You do that on your own. You have more time than I do. What we are is we're just data. We know how to read the data. We know how to bring you to the closing. We know how to negotiate. We bring extra value because you have access to the houses the same as we do. You go on any website, you can see a listing that went on an hour ago. But meanwhile, I'm doing showings. I can get to my phone and see that listing that you love. But you could call me and say, this listing just came up. Can we see it? And then I get on it, and then I provide the rest of the value. We interpret the data. We look at the research. We see where that property's been and where that property's going. And that's the value that we need to emphasize to our clients.
I love it, man. I love it. If we finale, we were talking about this a while ago, man. If you take the quantum leaps that the real estate industry has taken, and the virtual market, matched with the mindset that you have there, and then the application of the
100%.
platform that you have, you don't have to wait for me to even see the property. We can get you into the property, and all we're doing when we go show up to the property is confirming what we've already seen. I love that.
Exactly.
Right. So, the great thing about the product and what Juan is doing is, it's a way to make this more of a business where it's more serious than we're talking about, right? It makes it a little easier to explain the process to your buyer. And you know what? It also educates the agent along with the buyer about an agreement such as this and what it works. Because those are basically the three basic things, Juan, that you and I have talked about as far as how the agent protects themselves so that they make sure they don't get screwed, which is the story we started out with, right? So what else? Juan, how do people get in touch with? First of all, Sekou, do you have any other questions from Juan you might be able to add?
You know what I would do, Juan, and this is me knowing you and knowing how you think, man. And it's been a pleasure. We've known each other for a while now, man. Yeah, it's been a journey. What I would do, given the launch of this platform, is I would begin to talk about how it benefits the end user, right? Not the agents, but the end user, and the power that it gives the buyer/seller, and the confidence that it creates in the relationships with their agents and brokers. Dude, this is groundbreaking. This is not something light. And I want to see more of this. I want to see more. I want to know more.
So I'll give you a quick path from our side and software end. We're patent pending, which is another struggle that we learn and we develop and we go through it, part of entrepreneurship. And so our path is to go directly and combine resources with the MLSs. So we really want to integrate with the MLSs so they can provide this to every agent under the MLS and create that immediate transparency. Because if we go, as we know, if we go brokerage to brokerage, agent to agent, the implementation is not going to be there. And we can't let the 90% of the agents that are not willing to implement this to help them improve their business and help them close more deals, prevent the 10% that really want this. So our goal is to go for the MLS, and it helps the MLS with grievance cases. And also it helps maintain those other realtors in business longer, which in return, it helps with keeping them in the MLS.
In compliance.
So yeah, exactly. So that's key for us. And then it just, after that, we just want to keep educating, is bring value to these clients, the agents, and making sure that they understand what this is. This is just an agreement as a working relationship, and build that transparency.
Right. Juan, this is really great stuff. I mean, I think we've done a lot of great education here today about this issue of buyer agreements. It's really not an issue. It's just something everybody should be using and not
Yeah.
be afraid of it, right?
Yeah.
What's the best way for people to get in touch with you, to talk to you, and to ask questions on their own?
Yeah, absolutely. So I put on my info there. I'm always available, as you guys know. Juan at multipleclientlist.com is my email. Multipleclientslist.com is the website, and my cell phone is always available, 201-970-6272.
Awesome. Sekou, anything we're missing here today?
Well, not that I could hear. I don't hear you missing anything. Hold on one second.
Go ahead.
But it's in the garage,
So anyway, there's a question we like to ask that I'm gonna let my
You gonna let me do it?
let Sekou ask you the question we always ask at the end of this broadcast. Go ahead, Sekou.
So listen, man. Juan, you are a leader in the industry. You are a good friend of mine, and if Finale doesn't know, man, you're part of my hand, right? So it definitely makes a big difference to me to ask you this question. So you've helped so many people. You're helping so many agents. We want to know, how do we help you grow to the next level? What can we do for you?
Just keep spreading the word, keep pushing your agents to make sure that they know how effective a buyer agreement is. And that's all I can ask for. Education. Keep doing what you're doing. This is amazing. This is part of the show. You know, you
Let's
bring
go.
so much value to the table. You're always doing live. You give more than what you're receiving, and that's why I'm proud to be in this. You know, you can only count on a few people. So, and this industry is so tight that you know who's who, and I'm just proud to be in this group with you guys.
Let's go.
Thank you so much. And I know you wanted to share your stuff, but there was another reason you came on the broadcast today. I know
That's
that.
right.
Right.
That's right.
So you will be getting the Real Estate Skill Builder hat. I want to tell everybody that there have been so many things going on with RE Skill Builder over the last couple of weeks. We've got some great announcements coming up. You might even see some different colors as we move along. But we got some great stuff happening. And Sean, for you to be a part of the family of Real Estate Talk, TGIF is very, very special. I want to thank you for coming on. Everybody, remember, there's Juan here, Juan at multipleclientlist.com, multipleclientslist.com, and at delsol.j on Instagram. And by the way, for some crazy reason, I've got a new Instagram at the Dave Finale.
Oh yeah?
Finale had some issues recently, but we're all fixed. I look forward to everybody participating. Next year we've got Jesse Dow from Channel Junkies coming on. It's gonna be really fantastic.
That's the 200.
Please, yep, that'll be 200 next week, right? So please stay on for a second. Everybody, thanks for coming. Don't forget, next week, 11 a.m. Eastern time, right here. Talk to you soon. Guys, stay on. Where is it?
Don't you love this part?
Yeah, this hard part. Where the hell is it? I'm looking for my. There it is.
There's a shortcut.
There it is. Hold on.